Hi. So hello everyone, and my topic is tips for building successful React Native apps. Let me introduce myself. My name is MILICA. I'm a software engineer from Serbia. I work in a company called Soft, which is located in city near Serbia. And although it was first outsourcing company, now we are working on our own projects, and Badin is growing each year, so it's open for hiring new people who share the same values. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram as MILICA. So at first I was a web developer working with React.js, and in one of our projects we needed a mobile app for both iOS and Android platforms. And what a better way to go than go with React Native. So starting with React Native comes naturally for React developers because of a lot of similarities you have. You still have components as building blocks, you have state and props used the same way, you will still use the JSX, and you can still use favorite state management library. But it also has many differences. So to get the most out of it with React Native, certain do's and don'ts must be followed. So I want to share my experience and show you the tips for building a successful React Native apps. The first one is for the web, you will use the browser. But for the mobile apps, you will need the emulators, simulators, and devices to build your app and test it. And simulators are good when it comes to the testing and building an app, but they can be wrong in some cases because simulators can never replicate 100% of the real device. So you can find your app working great on the simulators, but when you're testing on the real app, then we will see that not everything is going so smoothly. So my tip for that is to always test your app on real devices through the development process and get as many devices as possible to test, especially on the Android, because there are so many devices that behave differently. And also don't forget to automate both Android and iOS releases so your testers can test on both of those platforms. So the next topic is styling. For styling on the web, you will use the CSS and style the element with the class name. But on React Native, you don't have CSS. For styling, you will use the JavaScript and you will import the style sheet from React Native. And since React components have support for the style prop, you can also create an object of set values and pass them into components as prop, as this example. And Flexbox works the same way in React Native as it does in the CSS on the web, with a few exceptions. Flex direction is defaulting to the column instead of the row, and Flex only supports a single number as a parameter. So my tip for that is to use the style component. Style component is the library you can use to use the CSS for styling your React Native components. One of the benefits of using the style components in React Native is that you get the CSS syntax out of the box, you get the dynamic styling, and you get theming. And if you're familiar and use the style components of the web, it is really great to also choose them on React Native as well. The next thing is navigation. So working with mobile apps, you will rarely have just one screen. So managing the presentation transition between of those screens is handled by the navigator. If you're getting started with React Native, you will probably choose React Navigation Library. And if you're integrating React Native app into an app that already manages navigation natively, you will probably go with React Native Navigation. The tip I can give you is to use always the native stack from the React Navigation. Since it's the platform native screen primitives, it's almost worth the performance gains over the JS-based stack. So the next topic is performance and optimization. And this is a really interesting topic because everyone wants to have a really great performance app. So I want to share some tips on how to get the best performance using React Native. So for a couple of years, I've been working on React Native app that handle home gateways and routers in the homes. So it can be a really bit challenging because home gateways can be, their response can be really slow. And also you have to be careful because sending a lot of responses to the routers can kill them. So my tip, if you're having those cases also is to use cache to improve your performance. Caching can reduce the number of the requests on the content provider, and most effective way to improve the performance and speed up your application is to use caching. And also you will get the availability of content during the network interruptions. Okay, so let's see an example of that. In this example, I'm using the Polo client for data fetching and caching, and I'm updating the cache after the update profile mutation. I wrote an update cache iterative function, not to repeat the read query and write query all the time. And we just need to specify which queries we want to update in the array. Here the update cache data in get profile and get profile queries. Also, one more thing is to do not forget about your console log statements, because when running a bundle app, these statements can cause a big bottleneck in JavaScript thread. And this includes calls from debugging libraries such as Redux Logger as well. My tip is to always make sure to remove them before bundling. So to remove them, you can use the bubble plugin. To remove all the console log statements like this, you will first need to install it, and then you can change your bubble.rc file like this. So what will this do is this will automatically remove all console logs in the release production version of your project. And my tip is to use this plugin even if your project doesn't have console log, because a third-party library could also call them. And if you're building application that renders a long list of data, let's say thousands of them, rendering large lists at once can be expensive and slow your application performance. So here's some tips for the optimize your performance on the big data lists. First, if you're using list view initial rendering, maybe slow or scroll performance is bad, so it's better to use the flat list or section list components. They have a better performance improvement. And also, if your flat list is rendering slowly, you can implement get item layout to optimize your rendering speed. And adding get item layout can be a great performance boost for like several hundred items in your list. Also, Shopify has recently open sourced a flash list. So that is a new droplet replacement for a flat list. As you can see, it's really fast and it has a better performance than a flat list. So lists can go smoothly with no more blank cells. So my tip is to definitely try it. And also, one more tip I can give you on performance is to use cache optimized images. For that, you can use the library like React Native Fast Images. And also, while building your mobile app, you have to deal with cases when the user who wants to use your app has no connectivity at all, or their connections may be slow, they may be on tunnel. So it's great to cover those cases, because when user open an app, you want to show something. You don't want your app just to stop working or maybe close. Like those cases can be really tricky. So my tip for that is to check the React Native Community Netinfo package. That is a package that provides information about the user's active network connections and connectivity status of their mobile devices. It is great for covering like connectivity cases, and it also identifies the user's connectivity type. Like you can check if your user is using the Wi-Fi or mobile network. And also in these cases, it's always great to inform your users what is happening. So it's for great user experience, you should always like display the message that there is no internet connection, and maybe give them some reload button to refresh the app and check again their network connectivity. And the last thing I want to talk about is debugging. What really helped me with debugging was Flipper. Flipper is a platform for debugging iOS and Android and React Native apps, and it will help you visualize, inspect, and control your app from a simple desktop interface. So with Flipper, you will have also inherited the plugin ecosystem that native apps like Android and iOS have. And that means that you will be able to use the plugins that are aimed at native apps. Like you will have device logs, device crash report. You can inspect the network request. You can inspect local database, like cached images. And this is like tool that I strongly recommend you to check for debugging and use it. That will be all. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can write me on Twitter and Instagram as MILICA. Thank you.